All right. Okay, so we're an emerging disruptors. We've renamed it. Thanks, Stephen Burke. So I'm Ann Mooney. I work for Xavier now, and I'm the head of the Sedler Family Center for Experiential Learning, in addition to being an advisor to 361. And happy to be here hosting with Jack, although it's hard to co-host with Jack. So I'm basically just a sidekick to Jack. So happy to be here. And if I'm moderating properly, I'd say basically nothing. So here I'm going to ask two questions. The first question is, in the context of Stephen Burke's bleak RIP outlook on the economy, how are you thinking about it in the context of your business? Yep. Okay. I'll give you two. I'll keep one.
Hey everyone, I'm Neil Whitney. I run a company called Plank, and we're in the digital fitness space. And I think it's really interesting for us because we see a couple things happening in digital fitness right now. One, it does continue to grow. And we find that what's happening with consumer trends is that people are wanting to not just go to the gym and not just work out at home like they were during the pandemic, but they want to do both. The model is hybrid for how people are finding health and wellness, and especially exercise. And that market is continuing to grow for us. The second big part for us is the fact that we focus on the creator economy. We work with influencers, celebrities, athletes, who are all trying to find new ways to generate income. Well, our platform allows for them to do that. So in terms of the economy looking bleak, it's interesting for us because we're in a segment that is growing very, very rapidly, a segment that has proven a new consumer behavior, and that behavior being that consumers want to exercise at home and in other places, but they're willing to pay more to exercise at home. And we are helping to make the creator economy, we're helping to make people that we work with, our partners, a lot of money. And so because of that, it's hard for us to understand at a macro level what's the outlook going to be for our business when what we're seeing every day is that we are creating new value for our partners, and we're in an industry that continues to grow. I don't mean to sound like, everything is fine and dandy in our world, but we do have good economic factors that are putting wins in our sails.
Great. Thanks, Neil.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Noah. I'm here with 80 Acres Farms. We're a vertical farming company in the area. Kind of two different pieces of response. I think the first one, from an individual company perspective, right? People tend to get very carried away when things go well, and overinflate and overhire and really, start to bet all their chips on a future as the future gets ever brighter, right? Most people who trade stocks and invest in equities, their largest problem is actually emotional, that they check them too often, right? People tend to sell when things are going bad because the only thing they can see is that the next step will continue to be bad. And when things are going well, people try to buy on the up, and usually your returns are nerfed at that point. And so I think there is a piece as you're kind of growing a company and going through this process that a number of us up here are going through, of having to have the discipline to be able to think just past that next step. Recognizing that when things seem most exuberant is when you need to be most disciplined, and when things seem most bleak, if you've been able to maintain that, you've put yourself in a position of strength to where as things change and as change accelerates, which will be the second thing I'm going to talk about, kind of you're in a position to actually step in and strengthen your position and really kind of continue to grow and harness, some of these trends that hopefully are in your favor, depending on the sector that your space is in. Which is the second piece, and I'm sitting in the audience and listening to a lot of very sophisticated views on kind of what's going to be happening in the bleak outlook for the future, and I don't think anything said was incorrect by any stretch. However, what we're seeing today is a lot of people attempting to compare this recession, or the impending recession that you're starting to see in Europe and other places to, less so to the financial crisis, often to the tech crisis in 2000. But really the nature of this is very different. This is the first time in a lot of younger folks' lives that we're seeing inflation. And frankly, at this point, the majority of the population is seeing a recession caused by inflation. And the very nature of that dynamic is incredibly different and really should be accelerating the rebalancing of capital towards some of these really, really strong trends that have been pulling through. And I think, different members of us up here are parts of companies that are addressing different sectors, from health, which is obviously key, right? And personal health in this post-COVID moment, regardless of spending habits, that's a trend that has begun and will continue, right? That's obviously a big part of what we do, but beyond that, sustainability, and there are a couple more that I'm sure will come up, over the course of the day and as you read. While we will certainly be heading into a troublesome period, there are trends that are accelerated by this forced rebalancing of capital as inflation raises the bar that companies have to hit from a growth perspective in order to remain in business, right? And so really you're just accelerating changes towards some of these new trends. And so we're excited about that. I think it's with change and with challenge comes opportunity, and if you've been able to be disciplined when others were not, you can put yourself in a position to really be active when people are scared.
And if Noah didn't mention it, 80 Acres is a vertical farming facility, growing facility just north of town with 2 more operations that are underway.
So hi, I'm Michael Carr. I'm the CEO of Amgen, which actually is Enigma spelled backwards. We're a travel tech company based out of Toronto, so the other side of Lake Erie, actually Lake Ontario. But we're really we're I guess when you look at the pandemic, because we're in the travel space, I think from our perspective we had to endure and survive in a period of a lot of uncertainty. And quite frankly, I mean, a lot of people looked at us and said, well, how could you survive? During travel was obviously completely reduced to really nothing. No one was traveling anywhere, businesses particularly. So I think, we endured. I think that's part of the story of Amgen is we've endured, we've kept going. We used that time to get ourselves ready. We invested back in our technology, we invested in our people, and we had confidence that things were going to come back. And as I think some of you already know, travel has come back. Leisure travel in particular, business travel has now come back actually it's accelerated. American Express just recently announced that they're at about 75% of what they were pre-COVID for business travel, and it's continuing to rebound. So I think we're in a really great place now to be able to capitalize on that after we've made these big investments over the last couple of years, and we held on. We held in, and we're here, and we're excited about being here.
Neil Gupta with a company called Kiwi Tech. We're a differentiated business model, I would say, just helping disruptors like these guys on stage. So similar to how Y Combinator invested in thousands of companies by mentoring them, taking equity for mentorship, we take equity for developing software. And honestly, if you look at the 2008 recession, so many great companies were born out of that recession. You saw a huge wave of innovation after that recession. I think we're going to see that again. Airbnb came out of Y Combinator back then, and Y Combinator has created about $300 billion of value and since from that recession. So I think that the pace of innovation is only going to accelerate if there's an economic slowdown. Sequoia has a 52-page white paper out there on the internet if you care to read 52 pages of white paper on the macroeconomic trends, and they're advising all their portfolio companies to kind of strap in for the long haul and be vigilant, conserve cash, because they feel that it's going to be tough to raise capital in this environment. I don't know. I mean, I know Sequoia is really smart, but I don't know if there's going to be a huge slowdown or not. Who knows? I mean, we just had record employment numbers last month. So, I mean, people are getting hired, they're spending money. So, the smart people are saying there's going to be a slowdown. Maybe there's going to be a slowdown.
Hey, Neil, speak to it in the context of, as I understand it, the portfolio of 500 plus companies that you have.
Yeah, so, well, our strategy is invest across all verticals. So as Ann said, we have about over 500 portfolio companies where we have equity, about $130 million in book value. So they're across food tech, health tech, fintech, sports tech, ad tech, I mean, across all industries, because we don't think we're smart enough to pick which industry is going to be the winner. So And if you look at the trends, food tech was down and out a few years ago, and now it's booming. One of our best portfolio companies is a food tech company. Health tech's been up and down. Fintech's been up and down. So VCs, it's like a herd mentality, right? I mean, they all invest in a few sectors at a time every few years, and then they favor another sector. So, yeah, that's been our strategy.
I don't know why I just did that. That was a bad handoff. That didn't make any sense. Okay, so my final question is, so as Mark and I came to decide on the idea, emerging disruptors, why do your companies, why does your portfolio, Neil, we'll start with you, Neil, have a right to win?
What we needed to look at with the model of Plank is how are we creating value for our company as well as the constituents that we serve. What our company does is we partner with celebrities and athletes and influencers and trainers, and we create bespoke mobile platforms so they can launch, grow, and scale their digital fitness business. Well, this is interesting because it's really hard to do that for most people. It's really hard to build technology yourself. It's really hard to launch technology, to scale it, to manage customer support and everything else. So I kind of look at our business as we're an incubator for digital fitness companies. We find a partner, we say, hey, I think that this partner is going to make a lot of sense, and then we decide, perhaps like a venture capitalist would, if we're going to invest our time and resources into seeing the success of this brand, be it a creator, an influencer, an athlete, if we believe that they have what it takes to grow and grow and grow and monetize that brand. So why are we poised for success? One, we spend a lot of time doing due diligence on the person or brand that we're going to work with. And that has us, for the most part, averting risk. When we take on a new partner, we're not worried about, are we going to be sinking resources into something that's not going to work? Like a venture capitalist, we try to understand very specifically what it is that we want to see with success out of one of the partners with whom we're working. So that's part one. And part two is the fact that we do know that creators are looking for new ways to monetize content. We've seen platforms grow in the last couple of years from, some platforms out there where it's more appropriate to take your clothes off, and some platforms out there that are just showing new types of music or cooking videos or something like that. There's a lot of ways that creators are trying to monetize their content. We avoid the salacious, but we do know that there is this new wave of social media where people are saying, look, I'm not making money on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook like I used to. We don't know how other platforms like TikTok are going to monetize people. And so they're looking to us to say, I have a brand and I have content that I want to share, and I believe my content has value. And that's for us to work with that partner to say, we do too. We think that your brand and the story that you want to tell and the content that you want to generate is something that people will subscribe to and something that they're going to follow. And that's a lot of fun, especially when we're doing this for the benefit of the end users of the platform, the people who want to get on a transformational journey to improve their health, their wellness, their well-being, their mind and their body. And so, again, they come to us and we launch, grow, and scale a platform for them. So, we've kind of been able to build a Venn diagram and sit right in the center of what are some macroeconomic factors like the growth of digital fitness and what's happening in the creator economy, where we realize that people are leaving legacy platforms in favor of new ways to monetize. And right there in the middle is we're saying, we're going to help you be your own brand, take your product to market, and be the perfect representation of what it is that you want your members to experience. So why are we unique in this space? Well, nobody's doing what we're doing. Some people can build their own app, and that's really damn hard. But what we do is we help guide them along that journey, launch that, and help them monetize through and through. So it's why I believe that we're best prepared to win in this space, is because everything we're doing is bespoke, and everything we're doing is with a white glove service, but it's also hyper scalable.
And it's all turnkey. Jack and I are on the board of Plank, so we have a little bit of a special place in our heart. Noah, why don't you talk a little bit more about 80 acres then with vertical farming?
Yeah,
and why 80 acres specifically has a right to win?
Yeah, so I think, going through, first off, I do think it's important to ground yourself in the problem that you're trying to solve. Right, and I think you did that very eloquently at the end. right? In the first place, when you're looking at the world, a number of the major events that have been discussed, right? You're seeing climate change, you're seeing massive water shortages in the western half of the US. You know, the California Farm Water Association announced that they're expecting to have to fallow over 800,000 acres of farmland this year that's already been planted, right? And unfortunately last year, between their May attempt and their June estimation, they actually doubled that amount. So we'll see how that goes this year. But these things are beginning to hit. Australia is on fire, and you're seeing food safety concerns, and you're seeing supply chain issues. And so what we've been able to do is really look and address a problem, a food system problem, from three different parts, right? One is kind of consistency of production. One is around the supply chain that gets people the food they need. And the third is around kind of the quality of the food that you have available to eat, right? Through COVID, you know, over 70% of people that end up having a very negative outcome had other comorbidity factors such as obesity, right? And there's a reason for that. Our food system is broken, and we believe we have developed technology that will allow us to slowly start to fix it. We really do kind of three base building things. One being we grow differently, right? We create, using technology that we've developed in-house, kind of little terrariums for our plants, right? Where every plant gets exactly the environment that it needs, exactly when it needs it, and we're able to then push them and really look through our understanding of biology and push plants to grow as fast as they possibly can and really to maximize their own potential, right? The secondary piece of what we do is we've been able to compress an incredibly risky 16-step global supply chain all under one roof everywhere in which we operate, right? So on average, if you buy leafy greens at your grocery store, they're about 2.5 weeks old, right? The reason is they're touched by 14 different people in that process as they make their way here from California. We're able to do that all under one roof in one town. And so when you see our food on shelf, it's a day or two old. And what this means is we're able to provide people with healthier, fresher food that they actually want to eat. And at the end of the day, you know, your business, your technology is only so valuable as, you know, people and your consumers are willing to kind of pay for that product.
And
we're
it's
very
not
lucky to
only
see that.
healthier and fresher, it's tastier. I'm a huge devotee of 80 acres, even before I met Noah and before I write a check.
Yep. Thank you. No, and I think that foundation, right, those three pillars of the problem are really big. And the last piece on a moving forward perspective, as you think about building a base and then really starting to scale and accelerate, the thing that we do that I think is really incredibly different than everybody else in the space is that when you look at the way in which we learn about agriculture over the course of human history, right? Farming is very hard work. If you farm for your entire life from 15 till it's not very fun to farm anymore, you've gotten 50 chances to grow your crop, 50 cycles. And unfortunately, the predictive power of your learnings is close to zero, right? Every year something different happens, and so we've been building this wisdom, but it's neither transferable nor replicatable. Right, what we've been able to do is in our single first scalable farm, we've been able to grow 2,500 cycles a year instead of 50 cycles a lifetime, and allow us to really apply the scientific method to plant growth.
See, Anne loves you guys so much. She's given you so much time. She's probably on everyone's board. But I don't sort of get cut up, but I want to get at least a question from everybody.
Sure. Yeah. So I think in terms of why we deserve to win, I think we're at the right place, right time. I think that when you look at business travel, and as I mentioned before, it's coming back, there's about $20 billion a year in costs in business travel that are just agents. And what we do is we actually automate the booking process for travel agencies. So working with travel agencies today, like American Express, corporate travel management, 40% of all inquiries that come in for business travel touches an agent. And what we do is we actually make that process more efficient. We save them money, we save them time. We also improve the booking experience for the traveler, the corporate traveler that's booking. But I think there's the big challenge right now that the market's faced with is they can't find the people. So the agents that existed before COVID, they're not coming back, or at least most of them are not coming back. And that's a big problem that the agencies have right now. The agencies are run extremely inefficiently. Their platforms are antiquated. They run their businesses like it's the 1990s still, and that has to change. And that's why technology transformation is what we do. That's what we're all about. And thirdly, it's just the traveler experience. Everyone here thinks that it's an online booking tool like Expedia, but quite frankly, that's not how corporate travel is booked today. So we are all about automation, we are all about delivering a better experience, and we're about saving money for the travel agencies. And so I think that we are at the right place, right time, because this is what we service, and no one else is doing it. And we know from talking to our customers, the reason they're coming to us is because no one else is doing that.
Thanks.
Yeah, the reason we deserve to win, I think, because we're enabling 500 founding teams to win, helping them, and a big number are female-founded companies, minority-founded companies, African-American-founded companies. 25% of the portfolio have female founders. We have about 70 African-American-founded companies, and I'm not sure about minority, probably 200. And really from our own experience, our last company we scaled, my siblings and I scaled to 5,000 people, peaked at $1 billion, and we didn't capture that value because, you know, we had some problematic investors on the board, and it sold for 150 million, which was a fraction of what it should have sold for. And we feel that we can lend our experience to so many different CEOs and entrepreneurs out there, and they can leverage our network. We have over 100 events a year where they can meet investors and mentors and CIOs and CTOs and workshops for learning and all complimentary events. And we think it's almost like a service that we're providing for the good of the tech startup community.
And perhaps some startups and young entrepreneurs in this ecosystem you might be enticed by. How about a single burning question from the audience? This emerging disruptor panel. Well, perhaps we'll start with one.
I just want to know you're all great and you all deserve to win, so what's your biggest need?
That's a great question.
Well, and right now, capital. and people too. I mean, it's a challenge because of the great resignation, if you want to call it that. Keeping or obtaining and keeping people is so difficult. We've been pretty fortunate. The Toronto market is very vibrant. There's a lot of really great talent, but we also have to compete with big U.S. companies that are in Toronto and local companies too that are hiring. And so people and capital.
Well, and the great thing about that is the last panel, that it's prescient, it's foreshadowing, because we're going to be talking about talent, and Jim Hawk's going to lead that panel.
You could move to Cincinnati.
Yeah, great idea. Even better.
Have a separate place. Yeah.
No, and just to reiterate, I think as you go through scaling, that process is incredibly person intensive and really skill intensive. And I think for us, you've seen a number of major companies scale and have cultural degradation within their company and a lot of other problems that have kind of corrupted their growth, or at least the mission that they originally set out to achieve. So I think the biggest thing for us is figuring out how can we hire at that right balance in advance of our need, with people who are prepared to take on that additional responsibility without building an SG&A that runs wild as you're heading into a challenging environment. So,
Terrific. You might have some really excellent talent sitting in this room, perhaps in the third row.
We're always on the hunt for strategic partnerships. We work with talent, and so we're always looking for talent agencies and people who represent just great creators and great athletes and celebrities who are interested in launching a digital fitness business. Chris Helmsworth just sold his fitness app Center for $212 million. And that's just a good example of the wealth that's being created in this particular space, where you take a massive celebrity like Chris Helmsworth. He's the guy that plays Thor in all the Avengers movies. And he launched his own digital fitness platform with a couple of his buddies, grew it to $212 million in 2.5 years. So for us, we look at that and say, well, how do we find the next Chris Helmsworth? So working with talent agencies is something that I'm really keen to find.
Talent's clearly a key thread, and it's great that, Jim, you're going to be able to address that in the last panel, I think, that we have today. So I'll thank all of you. We could continue on forever. And you have one more question?
Quick one for Noah. Noah, what your company is doing is revolutionary. and I guess by definition that's dramatic and significant. But it's revolutionary. You and others in the field are going to make an impact on the world's food supply and on one would assume, on the nutritional profile of human beings throughout the world. If you just look out 10 or 20 years, take both, what percentage of the food supply will come from AI-based vertical farms such as 80 acres?
No, thank you. And I think that is exactly what we're hoping to do, is really change the way the world eats, and hopefully, for the better. 10 to 20 years is crazy as our industry is moving in dog years today. I think it's going to be crop specific. If you look at our technology, things like leafy greens really should be grown locally, right? A lot of delicate crops like fruiting crops and other kind of products that have a difficult time traveling really should be grown locally. And I think you'll see pretty material absorption really limited only by the capital available. There are other things like corn and soy that I don't think are necessarily ever going to be grown in vertical farms unless the world gets to a much darker place.
Terrific. That's great. Great question to end on.
How about one for Neil? Neil,
No, Neil, you guys can get a room. No, seriously. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come join our 361 firm community of investors and thought leaders. We have a lot of events created by the community as we collaborate on investments and philanthropic interests. Join us.